All right, welcome to another edition of the IDP Plus podcast. We are very happy to be with you once again here. It is myself, Steve Thompson, Dicey Santa, joined by Matt Record. Matt, how you doing?
Howdy ho, doing great as always. How are you?
Excellent, doing good. I think we just bonded here pre-show over our cat talk. So,
Indeed.
for the audience in the comments, if you'd like to guess the number of cats that between both Matt and I that are living in our houses currently, we would love to take your guesses and possibly give the closest person a free IDP draft kit that will be coming up here very shortly, brought to you by
You're
the
dang
IDP
right.
guys. What do you think about that, Matt?
You're dang right. I love that deal. Only if you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. But yeah,
Yes.
closest two wins. We don't have any half cats. It is a whole number.
Yeah.
Uh,
Price
so
is right rules.
price is right.
Closest without going over.
Exactly. But yeah, first one to get it right. You're
So
gonna win
yeah, if you're
some
out there
IDP guys.
listening and you want to take a guess here, comment either on the podcast feed or preferably on YouTube. Throw us a subscription. Twitter works as well over at IDP guys, and yeah, we'll give the closest person our an edition of our IDP draft kit. So look out for that. We are going to be working very hard on that upcoming. But tonight we are bringing you our IDP rookies, our favorites, and our faves. So
Yes,
guys that we
sir.
like and guys that we don't like so much, rookie IDP players. So we're going to start right off, and we're going to go with Matt. Totally hates this guy, right?
Yep. Yep.
Now it happens to be just the first man up. It's Kalijah Cansey from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, defensive tackle. So Matt, why don't you tell us about why you are in love? I'm sorry, this is a favorite. So why you are in love with Kalijah
Yeah, this
Cansey?
is a straight fave. I thought you were being sarcastic with me hating this guy. No, I love Elijah Cansey and his landing spot there on the Buccaneers. A lot of the rookie stuff is a lot of projections, right, and landing spots. And we're going to be flirting around with both the dynasty and the redraft format, I believe, and sort of our rationalizations for why we like or we don't like people. So Cansey on the Buccaneers, he only has some of the greatest defensive linemen to ever do the game to sort of learn from there on that Buccaneers defense. We know the Buccaneers on offense with the retirement of former former Patriot GOAT Tom Brady. I am expecting that offense to take a huge step back. So I think the Buccaneers are going to spend a lot of time on defense. So I think the number of snaps, at least in his rookie year for Cansey, might be higher than we might think. We know the defensive line is hard for rookies to get playing time and it takes time to mature that body. But you look at the people on the Bucs defense, like Vita Vea is not getting any younger. Um, is Joseph Tryon still on there?
Yeah, he's still hanging around. I think he's approaching
Yeah.
his
So there's going to
end
be
of his
opportunity.
rookie deal.
Gotcha. There's going to be opportunities galore. I mean, they got Greg Gaines from the Rams, but he's sort of a consummate journeyman as
Right.
well. But the draft capital that they spent on Cansey, we love some tangibles. He's maybe a little
Mhm.
undersized, but I think that's going to actually work on this defense. And when the defense has a really nice secondary, which they still do, and a really solid linebacker core, that
Mhm.
gives the people like Cansey who can get after the quarterback opportunities to get those sort of splash plays. So it's not taking a whole lot of draft capital to get him presently. So I'm all in.
That's what I was gonna say. I think people are kind of. I even before I looked it up tonight, I thought he was like a second rounder, and I looked back and he's a first rounder. So what was it, the 19th picks, I believe?
Yeah, he's up there.
So now people his college was Pittsburgh, right? So the lazy comparisons were to Aaron Donald. That seems a little lofty. Aaron Donald was also not a first round draft pick, if you remember. I believe he was third round. So I think that's a sort of lazy comparison, just scouting the helmet there a little bit. I mean, he is incredibly athletic. He scored a 9.6 RAS score out of 10, which is relative athletic score. Just taking in all of his combine measurements and production there. So he, you want athletes there on the defensive line, right? The other thing, fantasy wise, is that yeah, he's basically free in rookie drafts, in startup drafts. I mean, if you're now, of course, in a DT require league, so if you're playing on MFL, maybe he's a little bit more on people's radars. You have probably some more in-depth people playing on there, but on a sleeper, I mean, he's a nice like last round take a flyer. Logan Hall, I know, is still there, but he's been pretty disappointing so far. I believe he's 2 seasons in. You mentioned Joe Tryon Sharinka. He's not done a whole lot yet. He's more of an edge guy. So, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity for Cansey, like you mentioned. So, I agree. I think he's a really nice player to have as a favorite. And like we said, he is basically free right now in IDP fantasy draft. So, love that. So, now we're going to officially transition to haterade mode. I apologize. I thought we were starting with our fades, but I was totally mistaken. So now we're going to go and switch it up and get negative here. And we're going to be fading Jalen Carter from the Philadelphia Eagles at the defensive tackle position. Tell us all about why.
So you're going to find a lot of what we're talking about here is all about relative to where you're going to get him. So the draft capital is going to take to get Jalen Carter. Obviously, Carter fell down the draft board a little bit based on some off the field issues that sort of happened relatively close to the draft. This is one that might come back to bite me because of how successful the Eagles defensive line was last year. I just see that defensive line and say there's a lot of freaking mouths to feed, and especially at that defensive tackle, position. Like, lest we forget, they had Jordan Davis, which they spent a good amount of draft capital on last year. They still got Fletcher Cox. I'm high enough on Milton Williams to think that he's still going to see the field. I know Jalen Carter costs a lot of money, but there are enough options on that defensive line that the Eagles can, and rightfully so, give Carter just a bunch of time to sort of figure it out. Those are the types of assets in these rookie drafts that I'm looking at my teams, and do I want an instant impact starter, or do I want someone that I can sit on a taxi squad or practice squad for a while? So I compare, Kalijah Cansey and Jalen Carter and think Kalijah Cansey has a more immediate opportunity to see the field and be productive from an IDP standpoint versus like Jalen Carter. Like, I would completely avoid him in redraft. Like, he's not even worth a flyer. I don't think he's going to see the field. I think they're going the Eagles, and they proved it with Nakobe Dean last year, right? Obviously a little bit of a different sort of draft capital in terms of the real NFL that it took for the Eagles to get Carter versus Nakobe Dean, who I think went in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
But it's a similar story. It's like it's a great real life NFL problem to have, where the Eagles are stacked on defense and they already have their sort of next guys ready to come up, which is amazing. But from an IDP perspective, there's enough question marks there, both off the field issues and with people that are already on the roster, that I am going to let someone else take Jalen Carter probably higher than I would want to take him in the first place, and have them figure out when he's actually going to be worthwhile.
Excellent. I'm just going to flick. So my first fade, I'm sort of on the opposite end as far as just fade versus fade. So this is our first bashing heads. However, everything you outlined there is totally on the money, especially from a fantasy standpoint. I am seeing Jalen Carter go ridiculously early because he's got the name value, and that is something you have to be careful of, and maybe don't fall for the trap. Both rookie drafts, redraft leagues, he's carrying that name value. He was talked about as being a potential number 1 overall pick in this draft this year. That's until the legal issues came about. So I get that. Everything you said totally makes sense. And I'm kind of on the fence. I'm sort of doing team bias here. I am a Philly guy. So Jalen Carter's sort of, getting some bias from me there, but it's tough because with those legal issues, right? I heard a great breakdown that, listen, out of any team, the Philadelphia, if he's not gonna not mess up and make it, it's gonna be with the Eagles, right? He's got all those Georgia guys there. He's literally Jordan Davis was like his mentor, apparently in Georgia during their college playing days. Yes, he was a year ahead of him. So if he's going to keep his head screwed on straight, it's going to be thanks to the Eagles and thanks to guys like Jordan Davis. So I'm betting on that and hoping that he doesn't have continued troubles or issues. Now, totally agree with you that year one could be a little rough. We saw with Jordan Davis, right? He had, Jalen Carter was 9th pick. Jordan Davis was 18th pick the year before, pretty much in the same realm there. And Jordan Davis, didn't see the field. Now, that was because Javon Hargrave was there. Fletcher Cox was there, still is there. That's another guy to be that's going to be rotating on that interior. You mentioned Milton Williams. So, yes, there's a large grouping there, and maybe they push Jordan Davis to get more snaps this year and kind of have Carter waiting in the wing. So year one could be really tough. We saw Javon Hargrave have an incredible year, and the Eagles as a whole, right, on that defensive line, near historic sack totals on that front four. Can you bet on historic numbers again? Probably not. That's probably not a good bet, right? So although he's a fade for me more in a long-term dynasty outlook, that if they can keep some of those core guys there, Bill and grow together, I think he could develop into a complete monster. But with the prices I'm seeing, that is a little hard to swallow right now. So maybe we'll see how minicamp goes. If there are reports that come out that, we're probably going to take like a red shirt type approach with him, you'll get a much better value on Jalen Carter. And that's where he really becomes a favorite for me. So
well, that's just it. Because looking at the stats, so Jordan Davis played 26% of snaps last year, which again is nothing. And I like to think in terms of what's most likely to happen. Like, is it likely that the Eagles have record-setting sacks again? Right. I don't think that's likely. They can still fall back to earth and still be a very good defensive line from an IDP perspective. Right. But, you remove some sacks and that limits people's upside. Then what's more likely to happen? Are they going to throw Jalen Carter right into the weeds, or someone that they spent, again, you said 18th pick? I'll take your word for it, being the Eagles fan, who was also a freaking monster in college, right? Like, what's more likely to happen? They'll utilize the people, because the Eagles are in win now mode, right? Like, there's not like, if anything, it'd be a rotation to limit snaps, limit upside. So I think we can both be right, which is the glory of the fantasy space, when it's all within the context of the argument you're trying to make. I don't love Carter right off the bat. I usually like more of the upside people that I can get for cheaper versus, 2 or 3 years. He will very well might be a fantasy asset that you would have wanted to have gotten right off the bat. But based on the ADP that I'm seeing, is like, I will take the later on flyers and the bigger the bodies and the veteran drafts than investing in him.
100%. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to do Aaron Donald comparisons, I think Jalen Carter deserves it probably a lot more than just Kalijah Kancey, just because they went to the same school. So
100%. Now, it's one of those things where it's all league dependent, which it always is. If we say every week, like, if it's straight dynasty and you get Jalen Carter for the entirety of his career, like, I'd probably take him over Kancey. But many of the leagues that I'm in, which is why I'm biased, it's shorter term contracts, right? So you're looking for more instant asset worthy stuff. So I'll let you have Jalen Carter, and I'll be happy with that.
We'll come back and revisit this one in a couple of years, right? All right, now on to my haterade. Staying within the division with the lovely Dallas Cowgirls and their first round defensive tackle, Maisie Smith.
But again, you're not biased, though.
No,
right?
What do you biased. Mean? You don't play fantasy football with any sort of team bias, right? So this pick, I think this pick from even a real football standpoint left a lot of talking heads and analysts kind of scratching their heads with the Cowboys making this pick. I think they felt like there was some needs elsewhere. It was a late first rounder, so I get it. Like, build through the trenches. That's what the Eagles have been doing for quite some time. They're just all SEC, Georgia, Alabama. Might be a little bit smarter of a way to do that, but I digress. This just feels like kind of a plug the middle type guy that, especially in fantasy, isn't going to do a whole heck of a lot. I mean, we talked about Philly rotating the defensive line. I mean, Dallas does does it just the same, if not they have even more players to be doing that with. Osio Digizua, I believe I nailed that, is a nice sleeper that I'm actually liking on the Cowboys at defensive tackle this year, much more over a guy like Maisie Smith. But you might see Smith going earlier because first round draft capital, new shiny toy that we haven't seen. So with all that encompass, I mean, I don't even want him in a 7-round rookie draft. With mixed with offense, maybe even if it was just IDP, I might not be finding myself taking a shot on this guy. So it just kind of feels like a nothing burger from both a real football and especially a fantasy standpoint. I don't know if you have a lot of thoughts on this guy.
No, I think you nailed it. Like I'm a big Osa fan. I'm not even going to try to say the last name there.
I think
But
I remember it
that,
just from the broadcast. Odigizua, like I'm pretty
yeah.
sure that's it. That stuck with me.
Yeah, I look for the upside in terms of number, especially at the defensive tackle position, right? Like, can they generate enough pressure to get sacks, and or can they get any tackles, right? Which sounds very basic, but in order to get those things, you need to be on the field first of all, and then teams need to be sort of, especially at the defensive tackle position, be running a whole bunch against you. So things about the Cowboys, for better or for worse, if you're an Eagles fan, that we do project that offense to be pretty decent, right? Like Dak is a decent enough quarterback. We expect him to score a bunch of points, which typically means that teams playing them are going to have to be passing a whole bunch to put up a lot of points against them. And you look at the strengths on that Cowboys defense, which is Micah Parsons, Demarcus Lawrence. There's a lot of pass rushers that the offensive line already is going to have to take care of. So you expect them, if they run, to sort of get to that second level, kind of like a lot of those linebackers there to sort of eat up sacks or eat up tackles. And then you look at the defensive back situation too. And I don't like, they have some big names there, but I think the Cowboys are susceptible to the pass. So I don't see enough play calls, runs inside, so to speak, that a Mozzie Smith would generate enough plays to really warrant being a very high, defensive tackle on this rookie board. I like some of the other guys a little more.
Yeah, totally. We don't have to spend a lot more time on him. Just a name. I picked him because he was a first rounder, and people are going to look at that and maybe reach. And I just want to warn you, don't do that. Maybe long term, who knows? But not someone I'm very excited about right now. So I'll let you. How about? So we're switching back to your list for a fave. Who's your next favorite here?
All right, it's my time to be biased. My team's the Patriots.
Let's go.
So Christian Gonzalez, all reports out of camp already is that he already looks like the number one cornerback on the Patriots defense, which is saying something. There are some names there. But one name I want to bring up, which conveniently came up, I already had him as one of my favorites, but the recent news about Jack Jones being arrested for trying to smuggle some guns on a plane, apparently. Like, that's even fewer people for Gonzalez to have to beat out. Again, all things at a camp are that he's already beaten them out. He's going to get that playing time. But I look at this Patriots defense, and I might be biased, but I think that it's going to be a very stout, very good defense, sort of across the board. I think the reason why Gonzalez is an immediate start and play, which I kind of looks like he's going to be a 100% of the snap sort of guy, is because our defensive back situation is not great. I look at similar players from previous years. Sauce Gardner is a bit of an anomaly that he was very good. But instantly IDP relevant, right off the bat. Derek Stingley, similar spot. Granted, he got hurt. Trent McDuffie had some good games too. These rookie cornerbacks, when they see the field, sometimes it takes them a little bit longer to get into their, we'll call it, ultimate form on there, like the ultimate shutdown sort of cornerback that goes from being IDP relevant to not, because you get to be good enough that people just don't throw the ball at you, and then you're not doing anything. But
Right.
there's this little gap in the first couple of years where they're still sort of figuring it out, and they'll make a few enough mistakes that cornerbacks or quarterbacks will take advantage of it. And from an IDP perspective, it's all you need. Like, you need
Right.
your
You wanted them to be
cornerbacks.
target.
Exactly. If you're in a cornerback specific league, which is probably the only place you really should be rostering a cornerback based on standard scoring across leagues, that's all you need to be relevant right off the bat. So to me, I see Gonzalez as someone who has no real competition to take away snaps from him. He has that draft pedigree that even Bill Belichick will be putting him out there right off the bat. And then a team that I think the Patriots defensive line, and say what you will about the linebackers, I think they're good enough that people are going to try to attack them through the air, especially knowing the Patriots offense won't be that great. So they'll try to get points up right off the bat, and then you build a 14-point lead quick. There's no way the Patriots sort of come back from that. So all that being said, I really like Gonzalez's spot there. And I think of the rookie cornerbacks, he has the chance to put up some really nice numbers right off the bat.
Absolutely. Yeah. The only thing I have to add, he's a 9.95 RAS score, which is it only goes to 10. So that's pretty crazy for a corner. A lot of speed, a lot of athleticism. So that bodes well for him for long term in the future. That New England cornerback room went from being a little bit crowded to the dust has kind of settled already, even with Jones' issues. Marcus Jones, kind of a slow burn last year. We saw him get used all over the field, including on offense. But I feel like he's not going to be like 100% of defensive snaps guy. Whereas Gonzalez and Jonathan Jones probably is their other primary starter, I would imagine.
Yep. He's the other guy who's also has. Well, we're not talking about non-rookies, are we? He has some upside in a similar spot I like him. People always forget about those non-sexy guys, right? Like the non-splashy rookies, but he puts up perfectly reasonable stats to be started.
So the NFL allows Bill Belichick to get a stud at cornerback. So let's just hope he utilizes him correctly. Fantasy drafts, again, if you're best ball, I love taking corners. I've been doing a lot of fading of defensive backs in general, and then I'll load up on corners because they have those nice spike weeks and turnovers and whatnot. So he's probably more of a best ball or a dynasty cornerback specific league. Probably not using a ton of capital, but he's still got a lot of upside there.
Depends how deep. Like, we'll start plugging our Masters IDP tournament that the IDP guys run, and you're starting 2 cornerbacks every week, and 2 cornerbacks in I think it's 12 teams per. Like, I do see a world where he is a relevant player at some point in the redraft year. So just don't forget about him.
Okay. Now to your haterade. We're doing cornerbacks here. Cam Smith of the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, this is a player that had a lot of hype coming out of college. People were surprised to see him fall all the way to the end of the second round. I think he was picked 56. And really just looking at the depth chart there, I don't see a whole lot of spots for him to get a whole lot of playing time. Like, they still have Xavier Howard, Kader Kohu is there. They went and got Jalen Ramsey as well. Like, this is an up and rising defense, sort of led by that defensive backfield all around. They went and got Deshaun Elliott. They have Javon Hart, Brandon Jones.
You want to talk about messy? The Dolphins have one of the messiest third levels of the defense of the entire league for fantasy.
Which kind of like what we were talking about with Jalen Carter with the Eagles, at least my argument for why I was fading him is kind of the same thing. I'm looking at it, it's like, this is a great pick for the Dolphins as a franchise, like getting a talent here that, can learn to get up to the speed of the NFL. But for an IDP standpoint, I want absolutely nothing to do with this guy. I don't know what
Yeah,
formats you would even be considering him,
yeah,
but especially at this cornerback position, it seems like it's really the top three or four, and then just let someone else figure out. Hopefully, you get one of those top four guys. Uh, and yeah, let someone else deal with it because yeah, it is messy. I'm terrified for the Patriots
yeah,
going against this Dolphins defense. Like looking at it, I hadn't even realized that they had just bulked up on some of these
yeah.
studs, like good players. So yeah, I don't want any part of that mess. Let someone else deal with it.
Could be a signal too, right? Of I mean, Ramsey's likely a 1 year rental. Xavier Howard's getting a little long in the tooth, so like if you've got like 53-man rosters with taxi squads, you could maybe find a case for Cam Smith in like the 10th round of a rookie draft or something. I would know the name though, however, because if there is injuries or anything like that, he could be thrust into a very enticing role this year. So definitely remember the name. He does have second round draft capital. The Dolphins probably going to be shootouts a lot, right? With that high-powered offense. So if injuries do happen to, let's say, a Xavier Howard or Jalen Ramsey or a Cater Kohu, you may see Cam Smith be thrust into the field, whether they want him to be or not. So do remember the name, but until anything happens to anyone, definitely a fade makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, this is one that will be available on the waiver wire, and if something were to
For
come up that
sure.
he becomes relevant, you can go get him. Then you don't have to spend a draft pick on him.
Exactly. Keep track with us. We'll be watching the Snapcast. We'll be updating you on injuries, and we'll let you know when's the right time to go grab Cam Smith if there is a right time. So we're gonna switch over to my cornerback favorite. I've got Emmanuel Forbes, the Washington Commanders. Main reason I like him is ball hawk. I believe he returned like 6 touchdowns in college. He let me sorry, I didn't have my information right. Yes, he was the 16th overall pick for the Commanders out of Mississippi State. And I just think, bad offense argument again, right? They could be on the field a lot. Might not, I'm a big Sam Howell guy. So when I say bad offense, I say that a little tongue in cheek because I believe I'm a Sam Howell truther. So maybe they will be in some shootouts this year, and he'll have a lot of chances for tackles. Now that defensive back room is a little messy as well. I know they still have Fuller there. The safeties are they've got Curl and Forrest.
Forrest. Yep.
But I don't think you take a corner, especially when this team again had a lot of needs. They're not exactly strong everywhere. So to take a corner that early and invest that in him, I think he's seeing the field from day one. So yeah, pretty easy reasoning there. I think he's going to see a ton of snaps. Got a nose for the ball. I think he could be targeted a lot. Fuller's kind of a shutdown guy on the other side there. So yeah, I really like Forbes in Washington there. So not going to spend a lot of time on CB.
No, but I will say this. I like that he's, I think, the fourth of those four guys that would be the cornerbacks you would take that could be relevant right off the bat without a shocking, like, Tariq Woolen fifth rounder who just
Yeah.
skyrockets up, right? Because you have, Devin Witherspoon, Joey Porter Jr., Christian Gonzalez, and I think Forbes. So if you are in a league where these rookie cornerbacks are relevant, I kind of like the tact of taking, like, the best or the worst of the top tier, if that makes sense. Like, let other people go grab those other guys. I think Forbes, other than maybe Witherspoon, has just as good of a chance of being relevant as the other ones. So let people get those bigger names and then grab Forbes. That being said, I still love Gonzalez for the reasons that I sort of outlined.
Yeah.
But I think that there is some benefit to getting the last person in those tiers.
Absolutely. Good transition talking about Tariq Woolen because that brings me to my fade of Devin Witherspoon, the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, he was the first corner taken. It actually went Witherspoon, Forbes, Gonzalez. Forbes and Gonzalez were back to back. I'm just looking at it here. I did not know that off the top of my head. And then before Joey Porter was the first pick of the second round, and then it was Deonte Banks in the middle of them
Yep.
to the Giants in like the 20s. So, but it's a crapshoot between all of them, right? I mean, they're going to be all fun to watch, I think. Now, Witherspoon, I'm fading just because I don't, especially in year one, right? They had some breakout guys. Like you said, you mentioned Tariq Woolen played excellent. They have Kobe Bryant there, played really good. So I'm just not. I think it might be a little slow for Witherspoon, and I don't know. I just don't. I'm just not in love with his overall profile. I follow a lot of people that do like film grinding and things like that, and people that have been right about lots of other guys in the past who I trust their opinion. So I'm not much of a film grinder per se myself, especially on cornerbacks. I stick more to analytics and whatnot, but some people that I really respect weren't totally in love with Witherspoon's tape there. So yeah, that's the main reason I'm fading, just because I think there's guys in front of him right now. It might take him a little while to see the field, again, barring injuries and whatnot. Of course, they're going to, investing that high of a pick, you assume he's going to get out there, but let's pay attention to preseason on him, because if he's not playing well, I don't think they're going to just let draft capital decide, what personnel they're going to want out there if he's not actually playing well. So again, it's a cornerback. I get, and also because of the name value and the pick value, he's people are probably going to jump at that. Oh, he was the fifth pick like that early. He's got to be awesome, and I just don't think he's as awesome as that draft capital says he is. So.
Yeah, there's absolutely no guarantees, especially at that cornerback position. Like, it's hard to project even veterans, right? You take a look at like Jeff Okudah. Granted, he had some injuries, right? Which, like, injuries happen, but if you were just to go into a draft, like, oh, he has the draft capital, he's going to be a stud. Like, there's no guarantees out there. And like you said, the Seahawks have a bunch of really nice bodies there at that cornerback position already, so there's a chance that he just hits out and doesn't become IDP relevant right off the bat. Just for me, in my risk-averse ways, drafting the number one overall person at the position, there's only one way for them to go, which is sort of down, right? Like, the odds that they end up being the number one cornerback from this rookie class, like, I'll let someone else pay for them. I think there are more sure bets in terms of of upside, and especially a cornerback on the Seahawks.
Yeah, totally. All right. So we are now moving to the safety position. So our first favorite is yours, and tell the people who you like here.
I love me some Brian Branch from the Detroit Lions. I feel like there's no buzz about this guy, and I don't understand it. So he was just so great on that Alabama defense.
Yeah. Monster.
Jack of all trades. He does it all. Like, he really reminds me of a Jaquan Brisker from last year, where it's like, yeah, he's going to get his nose dirty. There is a place on that Detroit Lions defense for a player like Brian Branch that you can sort of line up anywhere you want to line him up, which from an IDP perspective, like, we know safeties sort of can do it all from a scoring points for your team perspective, right? They can rack up those passing defense statistics. You want them to have a nice solid floor and tackles. And this is the kind of player, right, that can do it. So because there's not a whole lot of buzz around him presently, I'm seeing him fall pretty far down there. And you look at who's ahead of him on the depth chart. I do like Kirby Joseph. He had a pretty good year last year. But like, Tracy Walker is just a perennial health risk. When he's healthy, he's solid. But again, what you're gonna what the opportunities are going to be there for Branch to get on the field right off the bat in a spot similar to like a Jalen Piter of last year, where it's like, oh, all of a sudden he's leading the team, or he's up there in the defensive
out of nowhere.
And we've said it a lot today already, but like, we expect the Lions to score a lot of points, which means we expect the teams playing the Lions to throw a bunch. And I look at their defensive line, and we expect Aiden Hutchinson to make a big step up. I like what they're sort of doing there. Like quarterbacks can be forced into some bad throws, and then who's gonna eat it up? And you need to be on the field to sort of take advantage of that. So again, it's sort of for me with Brian Branch, it's just a matter of he's going to be on the field. I think he's going to be a jack of all trades. He's going to get those tackle floors. He'll have plenty of opportunities for the splash plays. And really, the kicker is not costing you anything to get him. You can just pick him up, and maybe he goes the route of a Daxton Hill this year, where he's not on the field, but now projects to be a big role in this upcoming year.
Right. Be
Or
patient.
maybe it's a fighter and you sort of hit gold right off the bat. But I do think this is one of those players that is going to hit at some point. So I'm trying to pick him up wherever I can.
Well, there's already reports that he might be playing some like nickel corner. He could get dual eligibility, corner and safety. So I think they're absolutely finding ways to get him on the field in year one here. So Dax Hill, that would be like a worst case scenario. But if it does go that route, absolutely be patient and hold on to him. He could be a perfect guy to like throw in on trades and like bigger trades if you're working some offensive studs, and throw me Brian Branch too, and that's the kind of thing that I would go for here. So yeah, I think he's a really good player overall. Obviously, he was a first safety taken, so this whole class was kind of
pretty low.
Yeah, not looked upon too favorably. So he went in the kind of the middle of the second round there as the first safety. But outside of him, there's not many guys that have a whole lot of draft capital with them. So he's the best of the bunch. I think that's for a reason. So I totally agree with him being as a favorite for you. So now we'll swap it. Who's a guy that you are fading at the safety position?
Yeah, I'm gonna butcher his name, Jair Brown.
I think you got it.
I think I did something. It's there's a rhyme and reason for all of my fades, and it's usually the same rationale. You look at this 49ers defense, right? And there are a lot of really nice bodies in front of him, sort of blocking his way sort of onto the field. Talanoa Hufanga has been a stud. He's going up into his third year, I think, in the league. So he's still going to be around for a while. Tashawn Gibson's in front of him. Just in general, that 49ers defense is one of those feeder systems where they kind of keep finding great people and great assets, and it takes a while for them to sort of figure it out. So Brown, like, great player. I think it could take some time for him to become IDP relevant, which is enough for me to fade him. Let someone else figure it out, unless you want to hold that roster spot forever. I find from my experience, for every Brown that you can wait 2 or 3 years on, there is someone that comes out of nowhere that you can pick up on the waiver wire that costs you literally nothing, that offers similar sort of upside in any given year. So I guess the one benefit is I think you can get Brown for pretty much nothing. So if you have the spot and you feel confident in the 49ers scheme that he's going to be something in 2 or 3 years, great. But no, thank you for me.
Yeah, it's a third round investment, draft capital, which is fine. We've seen plenty of safeties be successful with that, or even later draft capital. But he didn't grade out too well as an athlete. Now, we did see Kyle Hamilton run a slow 40, and that hasn't really and he didn't play much in his first year, but he was also a first rounder. So a third round safety in a crowded room already, just makes sense to kind of not be wanting to do jumping jacks for. So if you got, again, super deep, maybe throw him on a taxi squad, but I'd rather use those spaces for offensive guys, honestly. And he should probably be available on waiver wires, and probably not worth much of a pick unless it's very last round in a really deep league. So I like it. All right, we're gonna flip to my safety favorite. Uh, Another third round guy, but we just like, I think both of us like his positioning. It is Marty Mapu, the safety from I believe it was a division or FCS school, Sacramento State. Yes.
Yeah, that feels right. That feels right.
The Big Sky division. So this is a big Bill Belichick pick through and through, right? Mining the the non-Division One schools for a potential starting safety. All the reports out of camp are just glowing about this guy. Um, he's kind of a linebacker safety hybrid, which we know Bill Belichick likes. Kyle Duggar is, I believe, on his last year of his rookie contract, could be a
Yep.
direct replacement for him for the future, and he could see time on the field this year because we know New England rotates their safety group there too. So another guy that could be a little bit of a slow burn, but we like his upside a lot more just because of the skills. And not many people from outside Division One get drafted at all, and to have a third round investment in a guy that didn't play D1 football, I think that Bill Belichick and his team definitely saw something in this guy. So um, I think that's kind of, we both like, again, his just his setup there, and being able to be sort of a hybrid might earn him more snaps on the field early on. So definitely a name to remember. And if he's still available towards the end of your drafts, this is a guy I would definitely advise to take a shot on, and throw on a taxi squad, and definitely watch his snap counts, because he could be someone who gives you production early on. So that's Marty Mapu for the New England Patriots. Definitely remember that name.
Yeah, for those watching the YouTube, we confirmed one cat.
At least one.
There's at least one cat here, my little baby. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot being said about Mapu right now in the fantasy space, and rightfully so. So rave reviews. I think the Kyle Duggar comparison is spot on, where Belichick finds these dudes and drafts pretty highly in them. That can just sort of do it all, and you will see the field on in some capacity. And I look at that Patriots defense. I know I said earlier how much I like them, but like Jabril Peppers and Adrian Phillips, they're not getting any older. Jalen Mills is being converted to the safety spot, kind of out of just needing of depth there, right? So if we're already hearing that Mapu's looking great, I did go back and look at Kyle Duggar's rookie year stats. So 64 combined tackles. He did play 14 games. So, I think, to your point, temper expectations that rookie year. But I think, similar to some of these other players that you can sort of grab on the waiver wire and be immediately great, like Caden Ellis, for example, obviously not the same position. I know Mapu is sort of a linebacker safety, combined player, hybrid dude. But if this opportunity gets into Mapu's hands, I think he could absolutely be a league winner this year.
Nice.
But at the very least, long term, like I think it's fairly safe, because Belichick loves to get these dudes that no one really believes in, like no one's ever heard of them, and then year 2 or 3 they become the stalwart of the defense. So love the pick.
Yeah, definitely a guy who's got a lot of buzz. If you spend time on IDP Twitter, it's all glowing reviews. So maybe take that with a grain of salt. But I think I think people are hyping him up because he's more of an unknown. He had no hype coming out of college, like you said, not a Division One guy, Sacramento State. So I think people are just trying to highlight him because he's such a unique sort of case.
Well, yeah, and take advantage of that while you still can. Like a lot of these people that take fantasy analysts and all the hype trains for what they are, right? But there is some validity on getting on people before the general public do, right? I remember last year, Talanoa Hufanga from the 49ers was having a big hype train. Same thing with Cameron Curl, right, from the Commanders. I think our good friend Mace was on that one of the first ones on that train, which, yeah, those are the people that can be league winners for you if you get on them before the general public and the ADP sort of gets on there. So not saying Mapu is going to be that this
Exactly.
year for all the reasons that we said, but if there is smoke, there's often fire.
There you go. Beautiful. Which brings me to a guy that I'm fading. He had a little bit of hype coming out. I think people definitely projected him to go a lot sooner than the 5th round that he slid to, and probably ahead of a guy like Marty Mapu. I don't think a lot of people had uh, Antonio Johnson, the safety for the Jacksonville Jaguars, going after a guy like Marty Mapu. So that's the primary reason. He feels like kind of just a guy. We often apply that to running backs, and this feels like a similar case for Antonio Johnson. They've got Andre Cisco, Rayshon Jenkins. Yes, he could be an heir to one of their thrones. I think Cisco's still got a couple more years left, but Jenkins might be out the door after this year. So, but is it worth spending much energy on him? Probably not. And the Jaguars are kind of stacked at the first two levels, I would say, of the defense between their linebackers and their defensive line in front. So you might not see a whole lot of just opportunity. I also think he projects more as being like a free safety, which we don't usually love. Not as much opportunity to rack up tackles. Yeah, it might have a year with interceptions, lucky 1 year, but you can't really count on that year after year. So yeah, just kind of feels like just a guy and not someone worth. He like I said, he did have hype coming out of college, so you might see the name, you might see the depth chart, but yeah, just someone that I'm not really investing pretty much anything into.
Yeah, he needs a lot of things to go right to be IDP
Exactly.
relevant. And by that, a lot of things have to be wrong for the rest of the people on that roster. So, yeah, if you're in a league where you're drafting folks like Antonio Johnson, let us know about it, because that sounds like a fun league. But I think he can be relatively ignored in most of the formats that the more casual players will be in.
Yeah, perfect. All right, we're moving on to our edge. We're kind of mixing this between edge defenders, defensive ends. So your first one that is a favorite is
Yeah, good old Drew Sanders. So here's the thing. Very talented player out of Arkansas, right? I loved him going into the draft. Just one of those players where you're sort of wondering where he's going to land. And there a lot of the initial feedback right off the bat was negative about Drew Sanders landing on the Broncos. I mean, you think
right.
about who else is on that roster, like Alex Singleton, uh, regularly getting up to 20 tackles a game. Yeah, I know. Josie Jewell,
Yeah.
right, is also there. Another decent linebacker situation. Jonas Griffith, Randy Gregory, folks like that. But here's the thing: like Drew Sanders doesn't. That was never what made him successful in his last year after he transferred to Arkansas, right? Like where he was successful was in. I think I said this in a previous podcast, being similar to a Micah Parsons type thing, where he kind of all
Right.
over the field, like being asked to get after the quarterback while also being able to stay back and get some tackles, get his nose dirty there. So enough people are fading Drew Sanders where it kind of now is in my brain flipped around the other side, where it's like, oh, he's actually being drafted probably too low, because he's a talented fella. There's a lot of good value there. I think he's going to see the field quite a bit in whatever role. He's going to see the field enough that he's not a complete waste in his rookie year if you're in those cheaper formats. I don't think that both Singleton and Jewell and Browning will all be on the team next year. So if you're looking for that more traditional role for Sanders, I think he will be able to fill that as soon as next year. But this is a guy that I think they're going to pepper in there. He's going to get after the quarterback. And then next year, like, he might have the more full-time role to be a regular starter. Whereas, he's my favorite as someone that you can get that hopefully you can hold on to him in Dynasty so that he'll be on your team for years to come. But worst case, he's not going to be someone that you have to it's not just going to be a straight lottery pick. I think you're going to see some potential returns right off the bat.
Yeah, I think people we list him as an edge, right? Because I don't think anybody's sure what his role is going to be on this defense,
We have
especially
no
in year
idea.
one. Yeah, especially in year one. So we have him as an edge because there was talk of him, playing more of a dedicated pass rusher roles, like similar to a Randy Gregory, right? Who stands up. He last year on MFL, Randy Gregory got reclassified to a linebacker. This year he's back to defensive end. So we're really just going to have to pay attention. Let's preseason on him for sure to see where they're deploying him and what packages and is he driving back in coverage as more of like an inside linebacker type playing the run, or is he head down going after the quarterback. So for now, we have him listed as an edge. I do think he could. So our guy, our contributor, DJ Caltown, did a deep dive into third round or later. I think just third round actually linebackers, and the hit rates are not
Great. Not great.
They don't lead you to want to draft many third round linebackers. But does that count edge guys now, or are we talking more inside guys? So he might, kind of have a loophole there. So yeah, Drew Sanders, people, I think at the end of the year, we're going to get in our Discord a lot of subscriber people asking us, do I hang on to Drew Sanders? Because maybe he doesn't do a whole lot in year one. If somehow Josie Jewell stays healthy a whole year, which he's had trouble with, if Alex Singleton plays well and continues to see close to 100% of snaps in that sort of second linebacker role, does Randy Gregory stay healthy? Does Baron Browning put together his skill set? If that all happens, I think we might not see a lot of Drew Sanders in year one, but that's a lot of best case scenarios to have happen. So I think he's going to be a nice stash guy and end of your bench stash guy, and really just pay attention to injuries on that team. And if those snap counts start ticking up, might be time to start inserting him into sort of like a flex position. As far as rookie fantasy draft capital, I think in IDP only, it would be end of the second, middle of the third. In mixed leagues, he's definitely like around 5 or later guy, I think, right now, which, like you said, is really good value, actually, because I think we could see a Logan Wilson type trajectory where a little bit slow to start, but now he's a, definitely top 24 dynasty guy, creeps into the top 12 of a lot of people's rankings and finishes. So we could see that sort of trajectory after year one and just see him explode because DJ's study is only in year one, third round linebackers where they don't do well. That doesn't mean that post year one, they don't, take a rocket ship to the moon. So Sanders definitely has that in his toolkit to build himself a rocket ship here for the future.
Yeah, I think that mid-second round draft capital is about right, which again, some people are fading him, that it is falling all the way down to the third round for this guy, which I think the talent is there, and there is a role already on this defense that I think he can help fit in right off the bat. So it's definitely not a redraft pick, right? This is definitely a dynasty pick and stash and hope for the best. I would be silly to say that's not the case. But who else are you getting in those draft picks that you're feeling better about? You know what I mean? There's going to be question marks at all those places. You look at the college production, at least in the last year after he transferred to Arkansas, and the things that he can do on this defense. And it's a good defense. This coaching staff knows how to get the most out of those players, right? I'm not going to lie. Singleton and Jewell are not the best players, but my goodness, do they know how to be in the right place at the right time? So all of these reasons is I will take my flyer on Drew Sanders.
Yeah, exactly. That tool, like I said, his toolkit is incredible. So now we're doing since Edge kind of has so many guys and these tweener linebacker / edge guys, we're gonna do 2 of each for favorites and faves for each of us. Now this guy is a favorite for both of us, so this is going to be all glowing here. So we kind of butted heads on Jalen Carter earlier. Now we're singing Kumbaya over Will McDonald for the New York Jets, another first round draft pick. So you had the list first, so I'll let you start on what you like about him. But we both love this guy.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I see sort of this Jets defense being the Eagles defense of last year, right? Where like they were about to break through
Yes.
and have just a really good year. Especially I hate, but also love because I keep doing it. Talking about offense for these IDP players. But I
Yeah.
expect the Jets to put up more points this year. They invested a lot, right, in their offensive talent. They got Rodgers, who even at whatever age he is, 38, 39, is going to be a big old step up from Zach Wilson,
Yeah.
right? So teams are going to be in passing situations against this Jets team, which sort of was like the Eagles last year, which makes the defensive line be able to play more aggressive in passing situations, which will be a lot more frequent, and just be able to eat. So it's a question of figuring out, who's going to eat, so to speak. Obviously, Quinnen Williams had a great year last year. We expect Jermaine Johnson to have a step up, right? Don't forget about him, second-year player there. But Will McDonald has the pedigree, has the draft capital to see this field, and even in a rotation, the nice thing about splash plays is you don't have to have a lot of snaps to get them. So like especially if you're talking redraft in best ball, definitely a best ball target. Again, it's not going to cost you a whole lot to get him, really, but he's going to have the opportunity to do it. Redraft, it'll be a nice filler in. I don't see him as a regular starter right off the bat. But again, talking about rookies, especially on the defensive line, wherever they are, if they can be productive right off the bat, like that's already something that's a big positive, right? And then dynasty, the sky's the limit for this guy. So I'm fairly high on him, as are you. So love to hear what you have to add about that.
So he was the 15th overall pick. I did see a report, sort of like a draft night conversation between him and basically he was handpicked by Robert Saleh. He told him that we're going to get you into our defensive format, get you so. Playing at Iowa State, he was undersized as a hand in the dirt defensive end, but that's how they deployed him all the time. And he still came away with a lot of really great production, really great scoring for places like PFF. So now we're not setting him on the line as a defensive end, but more of this like another hybrid guy, linebacker, edge rusher, and Saleh obviously thinks that he fits well in his system. So he also recently got that dual designation on Sleeper. He was originally only defensive lineman, and I just noticed as of last week, I believe he got that linebacker designation. So I think
sweet dual designation.
We love dual designation here on the IDP Plus podcast. I just think he's going to be awesome. Like I said, I really liked him coming out of Iowa State as even just a defensive end. Yes, he was undersized, and now we're fixing that. So my big bet for this year is that I think Quincy Williams is in a lot of trouble. I think Will McDonald's going to take a lot of his playing time. He's not a great football player, Quincy Williams. Doesn't have a lot of good grades, and took him quite some time. Bounced around the league a little bit, was in Jacksonville for a bit. I think came to the Jets, might have even got released at one point, came back. Yeah, he had a really nice year last year, but these guys turn back into pumpkins all the time. And I just think McDonald is set up, like I said, I mean, handpicked by the head coach. We talked about a rocket ship for Drew Sanders. I think we've got a space station for Will McDonald ready to go. So I'm huge on him. 100%. I believe he's my number overall, yeah, he's my number 3 IDP rookie in my rankings behind Will Anderson and Jack Campbell. So I'm just absolutely in love with the guy, and I think yeah, I think he's gonna be really great for IDP and real football. I think people are gonna know his name. That's the other thing. A lot of people don't know who this is. He's still sliding. I mean, he's going after guys like Jalen Carter in rookie drafts, which to me is just absolutely crazy. So this is another guy who doesn't have the big name value coming out of college, but you can take advantage of that. Another reason why he's a favorite for me.
100%.
Okay, we're gonna go to Matt's fades and at the edge and defensive line positions. So tell us why you hate Tyree Wilson so much.
Oh, I hate him just individually, like just
Horrible.
Just as a person.
Right.
I no, I don't really trust what the Raiders are doing.
Yeah.
I don't really know what the Raiders are doing, and not to foreshadow some of the other fades that we have. I think even in this position, there's some level of there are teams you trust in certain positions to find talent, to nurture talent, and to put people in a place to succeed. Versus other teams that you don't. Like you talk about the Ravens, pretty much anyone on their defense turns into gold at some point. Like they know how to cultivate that talent. They know how to get the most out of them. The Raiders have not been that team. Granted, Max Crosby has been an absolute stud. They still have Chandler Jones there, who had a very disappointing last season, but was very fantasy relevant as recent as 2 years ago.
Right.
So I don't trust the coaching staff to be able to get the most out of him, and he's being drafted pretty high, as well as there's just a bunch of people ahead of him that I don't really see them turning to Wilson anytime soon. I don't know how much longer that coaching staff is going to be there as well. So we talk about, you talk about Saleh having McDonald as being one of his guys. For all we know, there's going to be a completely different coaching staff soon. And then Tyree Wilson is just not that coaching staff's guy. So there's enough red flags there for when you're talking about the defensive end or edges that were drafted fairly high for me to let someone else deal with it.
Yep, and Tyree Wilson's a guy who does have the big name out of college. So people playing IDP probably know his name over a guy, let's say, like Will McDonald. So, and super high pick, 7th overall pick. It just feels like another Raiders bust, right? I mean, how many times do they need to show us that they can't figure these picks out? And that could be to coaching, scheme, who knows? But Crosby feels like has succeeded despite the Raiders. There's gems on every team that are kind of unexpected. So it just feels like another Raiders bust, and I'm totally in step with you on fading
exactly
at his cost. A Big 12 guy, not exactly greatest competition. So totally agree. Another guy on the defensive line, we have DE Miles Murphy from the Cincinnati Bengals. So why is he a fade for you?
So the Bengals have actually proven that they can develop people pretty decently. For me, the fade is just opportunity versus cost, right? So they still have Trey Hendrickson, they still have Sam Hubbard, both very confident professional. At this point, probably staples in your IDP leagues. I just don't see a path. Like the Bengals, they literally, we talked about him earlier, they literally did this with Dax Hill, where it's like, you're just going to redshirt him, and you don't even know when he's going to be on the field and be worthwhile. And they put some money into, not some money, they put some draft capital into other people at that position as early as last year as well, like with Joseph Asai. Like there's just a lot of people there. Like he might be like the Sam Hubbard to Joseph Asai in a few years, right? Where it's like, oh, they're the new faces of that defensive line. But I don't see the path don't see the path quick enough, nor the upside high enough to warrant me going after someone like Murphy.
Yeah, right there with you. A Clemson guy. Could we see Cleveland Farrell 2.0? Although it didn't go to the Raiders, but ACC defensive lineman. Not sure that there's something to write home about. I'm pretty sure I saw a tweet during like the combine stuff where his hand size was like super small. Now for defensive ends,
Not the
does
hand
that?
size.
Yeah, I know he's not a quarterback, but it just feels like that I don't know. It feels like something important for a guy coming off the edge to possess. So I mean, not like a complete individual sole reason to fade him, but like little stuff like that adding up. Like you said, the path to snaps is a little tricky. We saw Carl Lawson there for years, being like, he's gonna pop, he's gonna pop, he's gonna pop. Never popped. He's still having trouble popping on the Jets. Although I do kind of like him this year.
Me too. Me too.
He's like a late guy you can get for free. So it just feels like another kind of similar guy. Like, is he really going to be? Is he ever going to reach a double-digit sack season ever? And I think that's a really fair and good question, and totally a reason I'm actually right with you there. On board fading him. Everybody becomes a value at a certain price, so he's still, even in deeper leagues, he should still be drafted. I just don't want to reach for him. Probably 4th, 5th round in IDP only, and 7, 8, 9 in a mixed league. So yeah, totally in step with you there. So that would bring me to my first fave, which again would have been Will McDonald. We kind of shared our thoughts, just going to hammer that home. Know that name, take that player. You're going to want him on your IDP teams. So my other favorite at the edge position is Tuipulotu from the Los Angeles Chargers. He has second-round draft capital out of USC. Do we not love us some Islanders from USC in the defensive community? I mean, how can you fade a guy like that? Hufanga, Troy Polamalu, the list goes on and on. Junior Seau, the list is just never ending. So I think we've got another guy that's going to be on that list sooner than later. Now, another guy who in year one might have a little trouble seeing the field, barring health conditions of the guys in front of him. So we've got Joey Bosa, we've got Khalil Mack on the edges right now there. But both, no spring chickens. And we saw them have their injury concerns last year and multiple years. So that's sort of why he's a favorite for me, because nobody's drafting him. He's second. I don't think anybody realizes he's second-round draft capital. I think he fits their system really well there. And yeah, he just feels like a guy who could definitely break out. And then for the future, I do think he's got a clear path to being a big name for IDP in years 2 and beyond, after the likes of Bosa and Mack are, on their way to to the rainbow bridge of IDP and NFL contracts. So just a guy that kind of my guy this year for me. So.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I always love the person that is on the opposite side of one of the most dominant, players at their position, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously Bosa's been hurt, and this Bosa has been hurt and hasn't been the Joey Bosa that we're hoping we'd see, right?
Right.
But when opposing offensive lines have to take into account a player, there's opportunities galore to be more relevant than necessarily your talent would allow you to be. Like, I think on that Steelers defense last year with TJ Watt, right? Granted, he missed a good amount of the season, but when he played, Alex Highsmith if you weren't paying attention, came out of nowhere. It's like, oh my God, he had a 3-sack game. Like, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
It's because the offensive line had to take into account freaking the wrecking ball that was TJ Watt. And then from the other side, you were able to get some pressure. So in this situation, Bosa can be that good. So it's one of those situations where you're not. It kind of works in both ways. If you want to be glass half full, right? Either Bosa is healthy and then a player like Thule, insert his last name here,
I did my best.
can outplay. Again, Khalil Mack's, kind of older, didn't really perform very well last year, or people like a Morgan Cox or any of those players. Can outplay them, get on the field, and then have those opportunities to sort of vacuum up those sacks that would otherwise be Joey Bosa's, right? Or Joey Bosa gets hurt, which has happened in the past, and all of a sudden you have those opportunities again. Now, granted, opportunities don't guarantee success, but for rookies, you want people that are going to be on the field. So I would assume, I don't know off the top of my head where he's being drafted, but my assumption is you can get him for not a whole lot, and there's a real opportunity to get some really nice value right off the bat. So yeah, I like this fade.
Yeah, he's a big under the radar guy, and that's why I wanted to highlight him for sure. Because I think he really, if things bounce well for him, could be a year one producer. But man, wheels up for year 2 and beyond for sure.
To the moon.
I got a lot of to the moon, guys. But we're gonna swap now to one of my fades. I'm fading the defensive end from the Green Bay Packers, Lucas Van Ness. The reason being, I think so. Again, back to my film guys, who I really respect. He's, according to them, he's sort of a one-trick pony with pretty much a bull rush move, and that's it. So I don't love that. I like a more complete toolkit. And also, it's a little bit crowded on that defensive line right now. Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith. You got the guys on the inside, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt. So I think playing time could be scarce this year, of course, barring injuries to people in front of him. And I just don't. Just kind of a gut feeling on this one. Like I said, with that limited toolkit, maybe they coach him up, but that could take a while. Sometimes we don't see these edge guys hit until year 3, even. And so are you really going to have the patience to hang on to him for 2 years? So that's kind of why I just don't love investing in a guy like that who I might be waiting and waiting and waiting, and it might never come. So not in love with Van Ness and Green Bay, despite being a first round draft pick.
Yeah, I think this is a player that is going to be a better real life NFL player for the Packers than an IDP asset, which is great for them, not great for us trying to win some leagues. When they drafted him, like you sort of mentioned, it wasn't necessarily a spot of need, right? Which is interesting when it comes to projecting stats, right? It's like, okay, you didn't actually do that, so you're not going to necessarily see the field. Granted, the people in front of them aren't spring chickens, and there's plenty of health risks there. But unlike the Quay Walker pick of last year when they drafted, like, that was a position of need next to Devondre Campbell. You're going to see the field. He ended up being, I think, a top 20 linebacker in most formats. This is one of those where it's like, this was just a helps bulk up your defensive line, helps replace the absence of Zadarius Smith, is that right?
Yes. He was gone last year. 2 years ago.
But one of those things where like you will eventually find a role on this defense. I kind of think of him potentially on the Jalen Phillips train, where might build up some hype next year, but really doesn't have a whole lot going for him. I don't really think in this year. There's not a whole lot about the Packers I love from a fantasy perspective, quite honestly. There's a lot of question marks all across the board. Coming from a guy that's living in Wisconsin, so I can hear it from the fans. I watch it happen. So I do think Vanessa is going to be a productive NFL player. I just, to your point, don't know if there's anything that we can really trust right off the bat that makes you feel confident, unless he falls a certain amount. Confident in him as a fantasy football asset.
Yeah, if the Packers, I know it's tough to try to make predictions from the other side of the ball, but I think it's relevant to talk about it. I mean, the Packers are getting stomped every game, and Jordan Love sucks. Teams aren't going to be throwing that much, so even if he is on the field, he's not going to have many opportunities to rack up IDP points and sacks because people are going to be running the ball for 2 quarters after they've already scored on them, which you weren't getting to the quarterback then either because they scored on you. So it just feels like that, especially in year one. And then, yeah, like I said, just not in love with the toolkit
100%,
for the
100%. You see the
future.
teams that are in the division too, which make up
Yeah,
half of their games. Like we expect the Lions to be at best a balanced offense, but I still think it's going to run through golf. Uh, the Bears, I don't know, Fields isn't getting tackled by the defensive lineman. Like he's getting to the
exactly.
second level,
Uh-huh.
and then the Vikings now without Dalvin Cook. Like we want obviously Alexander Madison to be really good, but like honestly, that's Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne and who did they just get? Jordan Addison. Like that's a passing first team, right? So there's a lot of limiting factors to not loving finesse.
Exactly. All right, I'll go with my other fade at the edge slash defensive line, and this is sort of a mini fade. I'm not 100% out on BJ Ojolari for the Arizona Cardinals, but they're similar to the Raiders, right? We were talking about this prior to the show, how he kind of makes the list because the Arizona Cardinals just kind of stink at drafting and deploying their defensive picks that they seem to invest quite a bit in. Both Zayvon Collins and Isaiah Simmons have been kind of busts up until this point. Now, maybe the former Eagles coordinator Jonathan Gannon, now head coach, can fix all of them and then get Ojolari to produce, but it's just tough to buy in 100%. So if Ojolari is falling to me, fourth, fifth round of a mixed league, or maybe the end of the third, early fourth of an IDP only, I might be back in on, but it just feels we just don't know what his role is going to be either, right? Yes, he's second round draft capital, but I just he's a little undersized as well. His brother plays more hand in the dirt, whereas Ojolari stand up. Critiques coming out of the draft where his run defense. So if he's weak there, he's probably not going to be a high tackle floor guy. So it's going to be sack or nothing with him. And do you want to deploy those kind of guys in non-best ball leagues? Probably not. So that's kind of why I'm out on Ojolari.
Yeah, this Cardinals team is going to be terrible. Like they're going to be really bad. Unless you forget, they don't even have Kyler Murray at quarterback, right?
It
So that
shouldn't be
does
for the whole year, but
right.
maybe
So
they'll
there
bring it
that
back.
that will lead, yeah, that will lead to a lot of defensive snaps, right? If
Right.
Ojolari even sees the field, but if he can't run defend, like
Mm-hmm.
people are just gonna be running on them all across the way. Like I don't
See
know,
it.
like the one strength the Cardinals have on defense is their defensive backfield. I would say of all things, like they have a decent defensive backfield,
Mm-hmm.
not good enough to cover up for the other deficiencies on that defense. So people are just going to run up and down the field on them. And if Ojolari can't even get the tackles that are
Mm-hmm.
going to be presented to him, he's not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very similar to Green Bay, right? If they are getting trounced all the time, then it's going to be running. He probably isn't going to be in there. If he is, he, didn't grade out very well in his run defense, so he's going to be out there missing tackles. Also, we've heard Zayvon Collins taking snaps with the edge players, so
Mm-hmm.
if he's transitioning there, I don't think Ojolari is going to swap and play more inside linebacker. So yeah, he might be a complete year one dud altogether. And then you're betting on them figuring out with him in the future. Which again, it's the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah,
I know it's
they still don't know what they're doing with Isaiah Simmons, right? Like he's now
yeah,
a defensive back. Like
yeah.
I don't trust that team. Let someone else deal with it.
It's a new coaching regime, but it's still sometimes these
I don't
franchises are
trust
just
him.
snake bit. There's no numbers that back it up. There's no analytics that back it up, but it's just a snake bitten franchise that you don't want to trust in, and they've proven us right year in and year out. So,
Yep.
all right, we're finally to the most fun position, right? That people are probably dying and chomping at the bit to hear about our fades and our faves at the pure linebacker position. So, your linebacker as a fave is.
Oh, DeMarvion overshone there with the Dallas Cowboys. There's a real opportunity here on this Dallas Cowboys defense to rack up, especially tackles. at this linebacker position, which we've talked in previous episodes about different scoring formats and what people prefer. But the default usually emphasizes tackles, and
Mhm.
the Cowboys defense has proven to be a IDP relevant two linebacker sort of system. Like their defensive line is extremely good. Their defensive backs are good enough such that when teams run against them, trying to limit the amount of times that the Cowboys can't have the ball on offense, especially early on in games, that these linebackers just rack up tackles. Just pulling up some stats really quick here. Leighton Vander Esch last year in the games that he played ended up racking up 90 combined tackles. He's not even that good, right? And he was able to get those stats. I'm looking at who else is on the depth chart. Damone Clark, Jabril Cox, which everyone still wants him to be a thing, but like stop trying to make Jabril happen. Like it's not going to happen at this point. Versus this young guy that you can get as probably the linebacker 5 in this rookie draft, if we're being honest. Maybe even 6. Who has the ability to kind of step in. Again, it doesn't matter if he's good or not. This Cowboys defense is a good defense, and they can put up IDP stats. So I like the correlation of ADP / potential spot for him on the team. If not just this year, but in the future, I think he projects to be one of those stalwart LB2, LB3 guys on teams for years to come.
Yeah. We know that it's kind of crowded there with a bunch of like Jags at linebacker.
It's just middling. It's middling folk, right?
Yeah. Leighton Vander Esch, despite being a first rounder years ago, kind of hasn't really lived up to that. So he enters Jag territory. Damone Clark, a lot of people like, but he got a little bit of a chance last year, didn't do a ton with it. Jabril Cox fighting back from injuries. So he, Overshown's prime to potentially take over, whether it be this year, definitely next year. I think it's wheels up big time as the LB1 there. LVE will likely be gone. He re-signed on just a 1-year deal. They did not take his 5th-year option, and they got him back cheap on a 1-year. So he's likely gone after this. So.
And he's a Texas guy, and you know how much Larry likes to promote the Texas.
The stories there.
He loves it. And earnestly on that defense, like you just need someone that can be there to make plays. And I think Overshown's proven that he can. And again, the cost to get him is not what's going to cost you getting, like even like a Drew Sanders. Like, would you rather have Drew Sanders at his ADP or Overshown at his? I know they're both faves for me, but like, I don't know, like Overshown, like he could be that little diamond in the rough for you.
Yeah, that's like pick your favorite kid, right? That's tough. But yeah, Overshown for sure is the lesser name. People aren't totally, I think, up on him yet. I'm sure that could probably change after camp and whatnot. He's probably going to get a lot of hype there. So, but yeah, he's definitely the guy you want out of any of the Cowboys linebackers in Dynasty. Again, year 1, I believe he was a 3rd rounder.
Yep.
So
90.
maybe temper your expectations a little bit. But if injuries occur, then he could step right in. So we think he's a good football player, and the story is there. So
it's just the tiers again. Like he's going off the board like the 5th or 6th guy, which is sort of the end of the. It's probably tier 2 of the linebackers, but I'd rather spend money on him at that tier than overspend on someone who could equally not be anything. So
yeah. Totally. All right. Now this fade is going to shock a lot of people. I'm going to let you announce it.
Oh, that's one Jack Campbell from the Detroit Lions.
Holy smokes, Matt. Justify yourself here.
I don't want any of them. It's really all cost. It's really all cost than anything. People have been just blowing so much smoke about Jack Campbell since that landing spot in the Lions, and maybe it's my New England self. Like we don't know what he's going to be on that defense, right? Like it's all projection that he is going to all of a sudden just assume 100% of the defensive snaps, and right, he's going to be fantasy relevant. We don't know if that's going to be the case. I like what Dan Campbell's building there on that defense. It might not be the smartest idea to just thrust a rookie into 100% of the defensive snaps, right? Granted, we know what Campbell did. I believe it was Iowa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just tackle monster. Like, he does the
Right.
one thing, and that's what he does.
Yes.
And there's definitely a opportunity with the Lions to have that kind of player, but it takes time to get up in the NFL. Like, rookies don't just immediately start, nor are super productive. So,
Yeah.
do I think that Campbell will end up being one of the top 3 to 5, IDP players from this class? Probably. The thing is, the amount that people are hyping him up at this point is he's going, like we were talking about it last week, upwards of like the first IDP player going off the board in some of these drafts, which I think at a position such as linebacker, there are better value picks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd rather even some of these fades we've had at defensive end and edge. Like, I'd rather take a risk on that player and end up with an overshown or I guess Dorian Williams also has a bunch of upside there on the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
But like, give me someone in that linebacker 4 to 5 range with the darts at the defensive end position, because it's so much harder to get the defensive end position right than linebackers, which you can typically find on the waiver wire, than paying the upfront cost for a Jack Campbell, which is extremely high. Maybe it'll be worth it. Again, I will let someone else do that, and I will let someone else fall to me in my drafts. So I'm just not ending up with a lot of Jack Campbell. Maybe I'm just a hater. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough to completely fade but okay, we did hear his father, head coach Dan Campbell. Not really. That's just a funny joke. And it's spelled differently. I believe Dan is no B. He's just straight P. But we've heard the coach speak that Jack is going to have to earn his spot on the field. So does that mean Anzalone's playing, the majority of snaps early on in the season? Could very well. I mean, Dan Campbell's kind of a crazy guy. So we know that coaches
it's
do
enough.
stupid things, right?
Yeah, it's enough of a deterrent where, at the
Yeah.
very least, in a redraft format like that, yeah, you will end up being a linebacker like 25 to 40, right, for just not playing the first few weeks, right? Like, that's all it takes. Like, those weeks are important for your fantasy league.
Yeah.
So yeah, let someone else deal with it.
Right. So, yeah, like I know we've talked about, we kind of had the head-to-head battle of Will Anderson versus Jack Campbell. Definitely go check that out. That was fun back and forth. And I took Jack Campbell ahead of Zay Flowers in a mixed league. It was a larger league, so are most people going to want to pay that price? Absolutely not. So that's sort of the fade that I think we're talking about here.
Oh yeah, he's definitely still top 3 or 4, IDP
right.
asset from the rookie year. Like, it's truly just personal preference and how I like to build my rosters. So don't cancel
Exactly.
me over this one. Yeah.
That was the only reason I made that move. It was more roster construction where I had knees and things like that. It was pick 15, so it's really the 203 pick, which is kind of in line with where he should go anyway. So it just depends. We always preach, especially in startups, right? Like, don't be the first guy to take an IDP. And don't necessarily get caught in a run. This would kind of ring true with Campbell on
100%.
a rookie draft. Like, I know, like, you don't always want to be the first person to take the IDP. So it's not to say we don't like him. I think, just as you were explaining, overall value and cost is a little bit high for our liking here.
Right.
So. All right. Now, I made 2 on-the-fly changes with my favorites and fades at linebacker.
Okay.
So, yeah, kind of, guys, as I was looking over the rankings, I'm like, we got to touch on these guys over the original too. So I have a favorite as a linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens, Trenton Simpson. Now he's another third round guy, so year one, let's set our expectations. We already know that he's probably not going to play much at all in year one, which is why he's a favorite for me, because I think you can get him at really good value right now. He is essentially the heir to the Patrick Queen throne, playing right next to Roquan Smith. We know that role can be very lucrative. And Trenton Simpson is a great player. Another Georgia guy, correct? I'm not wrong about that, right? Yeah. Clemson. Sorry, Clemson for Trenton Simpson. But playing high competition, the Ravens just hit home runs with especially on the defensive side of the ball. They strike out a wide receiver all the time, but man, do they know defense. So he's just a guy that's going to smash in year 2 and beyond. Playing next to Roquan Smith. Just need to. I originally had Diane Henley in there for the Chargers, who I also still really like. But again, both third round guys. So year one, probably not going to do a whole lot. But they are both very attractive options to take over as starters in year 2 and beyond. So yes, Trenton Simpson guy. Don't be discouraged by year one results. Absolutely hold him. Get him as trade throw-ins if you can. He's gonna be a really great IDP asset for the future for sure.
Yeah, I think you said it all. Don't pay attention to the first year stats. It's a bad comparison, but my mind goes to a Jamin Davis over there on the Commanders.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, Davis was a first rounder, right?
Right.
But didn't really do much. People were like, "Oh, he's terrible. Like fade him." Last year had a decent enough campaign for what he's being drafted as, which was sort of an LB3, 104 combined tackles, 3 sacks. I think that is the floor for what I expect for Simpson to get in his second year, assuming, which I think the writing's on the wall there with Queen on the Ravens, that Simpson, that's the heir apparent. Like that's the guy that's going to be next to Roquan Smith, and that has always paid dividends. Back when Smith was on the Bears, as well as last year with Queen getting a big old bump as well. So I really do like this fave. And like you said, you can probably get him as linebacker 4 or linebacker 5, depending on what site people are paying attention to. But that is the perfect level of commitment for someone like this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And my fade that I made a pivot to, originally I had Noah Sewell from the Chicago Bears, but he's only a 5th rounder. We're not really expecting much. And basically the reasoning was it's too crowded. I have pivoted to be fading linebacker Dorian Williams from the Buffalo Bills. A lot of people think he's hot in the Twitter streets. A lot of people think he's going to take over the Tremaine Edmonds role, but I think it's a lot muddier than people realize there. Tyrell Dodson was the direct replacement for Tremaine Edmonds when he missed time last year. So he's more of a veteran. He's younger as well. Not younger than Dorian, but younger in general. I think he's like 24, 25 years old. So they could easily give him the shot. He played pretty well in 1 or 2 games that he was the direct replacement. They also have a fellow 3rd round pick from last year, Terrell Bernard. Now he more was is the Matt Milano backup in that system. So, but maybe they transition him. I think it's going to be a wide open competition. And that's why I just don't like it. I think people are reaching for him again because he's the new shiny toy, but he's a 3rd rounder. Terrell Bernard from last year was a 3rd rounder. And Tyrell Dodson was the guy who got the opportunity last year and did pretty darn well with it. So I'm just not nearly as big of a fan of Dorian Williams. Also, he was right towards the end of the 3rd round and coming out of Tulane as a 3rd rounder. Now we saw, like you mentioned, Jamin Davis earlier and Zaven Collins, who both kind of came from smaller schools but were 1st rounder and have been humongous disappointments. Now we're talking about a 3rd rounder from a very small school, and people are just in love with him. So I don't really get it, and he is my linebacker fade for this year.
Yeah, they both also went out and got Leonard Floyd too, from the Rams, who former 9th overall pick back in 2016. Granted, that was a while ago, but I think to your point, which again maybe it's just the haterade I like to sip, but people are so hot in the streets for Dorian Williams. It's like
Mhm.
he hasn't done anything yet. Uh, and there's a lot of competition. People are just, oh, he's going to obviously outplay all these people. Yeah, as we've
Mhm.
mentioned, third round picks aren't guaranteed a dang thing, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it's cloudy at best
Mhm.
on this defense for snaps. So I'm seeing him go as high up now as LB3
Mhm.
in some of these leagues. I would much rather fall back for a Trenton Simpson. Like let him fall back to me at LB4
Mhm.
LB5, then invest
Yeah.
what you need to invest to get Jordan Williams right now. So yeah, it's one of those things where we talked about Drew Sanders having so much hate that he becomes a value. I think right
Mhm.
now Dorian Williams, at a point, if you were paying attention, there was a time where he was a great value, where he was being drafted in terms of
Mhm.
potential opportunity. But as of right now, I think it's gone the other way. I think people are so hot on him, you can't help but not pay that price and let someone else deal with it, and you'll have someone else fall to you that I think is gonna be a better value.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's been no indication. He's not named the starter. I think people are making very, very wild assumptions that he's going to walk into the starter role, and just plain don't agree with that. So that's where we'll end things today. Matt, you are so much better at plugging and informing the people of what we've got going on here at IDP Guys. So could you tell them a little bit about what's on the horizon, what
Oh,
we've got
I would
going
love
on, and
to.
yeah, sorry to put you on the spot there, but you're just a rock star with that. So I'd rather have you get the information to the people in the way that you do. So
Oh, absolutely. Happy to. So here at IDP guys, we have just a plethora of content that help you win your leagues. We obviously have our lovely YouTube channel, which you might be watching us on that right now. If you're not, head over there, subscribe to us, follow everything we put out there. Obviously, we have this IDP Plus podcast. We're putting out great stuff, but as we get closer to the season, we're gonna have some more regularly scheduled content about start sit articles, important rankings, things to know, and things such as that. So follow us on YouTube. Obviously, we have the IDP Guys site as well, idpguys.org, where we have all the articles to help you out from Dynasty to redraft to best ball to sports gambling. Really, anything that you could be doing in the fantasy or gambling space, we are going to be covering for you. So get in there now. Our redraft rankings are still in the works. They're still incubating, but they are going to be coming out soon as we sort of get towards the redraft section of the fantasy calendar, which is
yeah.
exciting. It's as of recording this, middle of June, so we're only
Mhm.
a month and a half away from some preseason games starting
Yeah.
up, which is pretty exciting and pretty crazy to think about. So follow us on all the socials: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube,
Yeah.
TikTok, literally anything you can think of. We are very open if you have any questions about things specifically for your league, or anything starting things up, or dynasty to redraft. We're here to help you win your league. So reach out. We love to field questions. If you have anything specific, you might be featured on one of these IDP Plus podcasts or any one of our other videos, sort of moving forward. So yeah,
Excellent.
be on the lookout for some of these specific IDP fun leagues that we run. We have
Yeah.
some fun things cooking in terms of some. I think we're gonna have some best ball leagues. We're gonna have
Mhm.
some redraft leagues where you get to compete against some of the IDP guys uh, roster. So some of the professional fantasy football players out there.
Yeah.
No, we have a lot of fun stuff going on. You
Yeah.
don't miss out.
Yeah, stay tuned. My favorite thing that I like to plug is our Discord. You hop in there when you sign up for a membership, and you get access to all these great minds. We love to help people manage their dynasty rosters, make trades, make rookie picks. So that's one of my favorite things to help people out with. So yeah, appreciate everyone listening. they can find. I'm over on Twitter at Dynasty Santa. I pretty much live there. You'll see lots of thoughts, football and beyond. And I love to answer people's questions. So anyone looking for help with anything can hit me there. If you feel like becoming a member, you'll have much quicker and direct access to myself and our host of experts over at the IDP guys. So Matt, where can they find you?
Yeah, at mrecord21 over there on Twitter. Yeah, let's win some fantasy leagues. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Yes, sir.